Hello, everyone. What's going on? Firstly, I hope that you're doing all okay, and I hope everyone is well. Today is a very special live stream in my YouTube channel and just the history of that channel. And I talk a lot about Back to the Future on my channel. And luckily enough, I've managed to actually get a huge star from the Back to the Future franchise. And my guest today is none other than Jeffrey Weissman, which I'm just pumped to have on the channel. So, Jeffrey, man, how you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be here, Mike. Hi.
Yeah, hi man. I love the glasses. Firstly, they're just
I was
awesome.
just about to make some pizza.
Oh wow, is that the original one from the movie as well?
Oh yeah. No, no.
No. Oh, honestly, that is so cool. I didn't expect that at all. So that's awesome. So Jeffrey, kind of before we start the stream today, I've got two special hellos I want to mention from two awesome groups of people. So of course myself and anyone that's watching this, but also the guys over at What the Flux podcast also say a big hello. And because I do know that you did a live stream with them on their Spotify kind of podcast that they've got.
Yeah, and
So I
I
listen.
I think I'm going to see them in August. They have hinted that they're going to come out to Fanboy Expo in Orlando,
Right.
where James Tolkien, Claudia Wells, Harry Waters Jr., Don Full, myself are all going to be there for a little reunion
Wow,
with
that's
masks
awesome.
on.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I've actually met those guys in 2015 when they came to the UK to do a London Film Comic Con.
The what
Um,
the Flux folk?
no, James Tolkien, Claudia Wells, Donald, and Harry. Yeah, all those guys do it all lovely.
But you didn't meet me then?
Oh, were you there?
I was.
I didn't even know you were there. I know. Otherwise, I would have definitely said hello. I generally didn't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I was there. I remember pinching myself several times, saying, "What am I doing here?"
right.
Um, yeah, that was a great show. We had 11 of the cast members at that, and it, Joyner, Jason Joyner, the owner of that show, is a huge Back to the Future fan, and he wanted, in fact, because I had been a guest of his at a couple other cons in Milton Keynes and once before in London with James and Leonard Nimoy and company. I
Right.
ran into Jason at a Doctor Who convention, the Gallifrey one,
Okay.
and so Jason said, "Jeffrey, we love having you over. How can I get Michael J. Fox and Tom Wilson to come to my show for the reunion in 2015 for the 20, was it the 25th?" And I said, "Well, I'll write them, tell them how wonderful you've treated me, and then I suggest give Mike the same amount of money as you're giving him to his charity. That'll get him there." And then it turned out that Mike, whatever offer Jason made, it worked.
Mhm.
It was the very first official appearance of Michael at a Comic Con, and he's been doing them ever since. So as you can see,
Right.
I can't tell, is the split screen or share screen showing?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can see the full cast photo right now.
Good, yeah. So you have on one end Francis Lee McCain,
Mhm.
next to Ricky Dean Logan, next to me. So I was there. Next
Oh,
to Mark McClure, played Dave McFly, and of course Don Folove, Mary Goldie Wilson, Harry Waters Jr., James Tolkien, Claudia Wells, Leah Thompson, Chris Lloyd, and Michael J. Fox. Probably the biggest cast reunion outside of the very first reunion we did for the Hollywood show back in 2008.
right, right. Yeah. So when I went to that Comic Con, yeah, I noticed it was a big reunion. Because since then I've noticed that sometimes it's either Michael, Christopher, and Leah. Or sometimes it's just you, Claudia, James, and Harry Waters and Donald. Which is just awesome that you still talk to the cast members from Back to the Future as well, and
Sure,
that's just
we
cool.
just a couple of weeks ago we did an event, a virtual cast reunion with Leah and about uh, a half dozen others. It was
Mhm.
really quite fun. It's nice to do something during the pandemic, and
Yeah.
then a miniature reunion in Pensacola in May, which had been postponed from the previous year,
Mhm.
and it was scary because it was the first event I've done since
Right.
pandemic lockdown. And 2 days before the event,
Hmm.
the governor of Florida released the mask mandate. So we
Right.
were like, oh no. And luckily, the show kept pretty much up with the mask mandate.
Mhm.
Though there was still, how do I want to say, breakthrough anti-maskers? No.
Okay.
And out in the
Okay. Yeah.
streets, a lot of people not wearing masks. So it's crazy, especially with the Delta variant
Mhm.
rearing its head
Right.
in Lambda.
Right. Yeah. I bet it's crazy. And how did you find the virtual experience compared to being like the actual experience?
Oh, there's no comparison, really. I mean, it's great to see so many beautiful faces, and I don't get to see Leah enough because she's either directing or doing the bigger shows with Michael and Chris and Tom.
Mhm.
But it's still wonderful to see the cast members, and because every production you work on, while you're working on it, because you're working so hard, and there's no time really to you know drop the ball, as to where you become a kind of a family, and often an ensemble on this creative process, and it's really wonderful. You get
Right.
very close very quickly, and I've been very fortunate on so many film projects and theater projects and television pieces that I've done. The
Mhm.
talent is so high, the caliber of the casting is so great that the just being in the creative realm of such great talent is so inspiring.
Mhm.
And when you see how focused and how uh, you know vulnerable, open people are with each other in that creative
Right.
process, and saying yes, and pushing and pulling and giving and taking and compromising and so on and so forth. The collaboration, there's nothing really like that uh,
Mhm.
else in any other industry that I know of, where you do a project, you come together, and then it's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then years later, if it's vastly successful, like Back to the Future series has been, and you come
Mhm.
back together, it's a real gift. It's a real delight. And then to celebrate with the fans, I'm as big as a fan as many of the fans. The first
Right.
film, knocked me out. When it came out, I was co-starring in a film called Pale Rider with Clint Eastwood, his return to westerns,
Right.
and I wanted to see what the competition was. And I was already a fan of Chris and Michael, and I uh, I knew Crispin from a film I did with him a few years before the first Back to the Future film uh, at the American Film Institute. And when he came on, I was like, "Hey, I know that guy. He's knocking it out of the park." Little did I know that I would be taking over the role. And
Right.
in fact, when I was up for originally being his stand-in, I called him. I said, "Crispin, say a good word for me. I need the work." Which he didn't call me back until he was ready to sue after Part III came out. And
Right. Right.
uh, anyway, so I guess I'm sidetracking from your question.
Of
It
course.
really is a gift to be a collaborator on such great storytelling.
Mhm. No, yeah, definitely, and especially with that high standard as you mentioned, because you did mention about being on Pale Rider with Clint Eastwood, which alone is just an experience itself. Um, wa- was it more intimidating being on the set of Pale Rider than it was Back to the Future, or?
Well, uh, there's really no time for intimidation. Though I have to admit, the on Pale Rider, uh, Chris Penn, Sean Penn's little brother, who's unfortunately passed away,
Mhm.
he had met Clint at a party and said, "I want to work with you." And Clint sent him the Pale Rider script. Chris kind of threw it back because Clint was offering him a good guy role. And
Right.
Chris said, "I want to play a bad guy." So because of that, the role of Eddie Conway, the actor Chuck LaFont, who was playing Teddy originally, moved into that role. And then
Mhm.
Teddy became available, and my agent sent me in, and I knew I had to cry on cue for my audition. I was being put
Wow.
on tape for Clint, who was already in Idaho. And so I, used all my acting tools that I had in my pocket, and was able to cry no problem on cue. And sure enough, the next Monday I was on my way to Idaho to shoot the film, and it was really interesting because I had never met Clint, even though he cast me. We haven't worked together yet, and so it was not until I was on set, and they had just shot Chuck, who played my brother Eddie. They shot his scene, and with Michael Moriarty on the buckboard, and I was set to come up next, and Clint, while the crew was setting up my shot, introducing my character into the film, he went off to shoot the next or set up the next shot, which was going to be
Right.
Carrie Snodgrass' character grabbing the horse by the reins to keep him from Michael's character Hull from going into town. And I followed Clint because I hadn't met him yet, really. And
Okay.
he was in his duster and his hat, and it was very intimidating. It was the man with no name, from the spaghetti westerns that
Right.
shoots everyone.
Right.
Very intimidating.
Yeah.
And so I followed him, and he was scouting out the next shot, and he turned, and he saw me, and he said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, Mr. Eastwood, I'm Jeffrey Weissman. I just wanted to introduce myself. We're going to work together in the next shot." And put on my. He goes, "I know who you are. Who do you think cast you?" And I was like, "Yes, of course. Okay, never mind." So I guess I had a little intimidation there, but
That's
eventually,
awesome.
we're having lunch together in blizzards, having steak and lobster. It was really surreal. But the bottom line, it was a lovely collaborative effort. The crew, the cast, everyone was top notch on that
Right.
production. And I had mutual friends with Carrie. I went to high school. In my year was Chris's brother Mike, and I knew Sean, and so I had connections to some of the cast already. And then there were
Right.
generally wonderful open hearts. Michael Moriarty was very sweet, and I had worked previously with J.D. Johnson, was one of the bad guys on Twilight Zone movie. So there were connections that I made, and so you could deepen the family feel. And I actually kept Carrie Snodgrass from quitting the film a couple times
Oh
because
wow.
she was a very feisty, wonderful spirit who loved being a collaborator, aggressive in developing strong women, and
Right.
and Michael and Clint didn't agree with her doing some of the things she wanted to do, and she, at the end of the day, sometimes would be very pissed. And because I was close to her right away, I was her outlet for confiding and venting. And I
Right.
would, buy a pitcher of strawberry margaritas or daiquiris or whatever, and get her to unwind and let it all out, and she'd calm down and be there for the next day, thank goodness. Although I remember
Wow.
Michael Moriarty quitting uh, during the first fight scene when he goes into town, Hull Barrett. I think Marvin McIntyre, Charlie Hallahan, the guys who were playing the ruffians from the town. I think
Mhm.
one of them or another were messing around during the fight rehearsal, and Michael accidentally got injured and broke 3 fingers, and he
Oh.
quit because he had been commissioned to write a symphony. He was a
Mhm.
wonderful musician writer, and it took Clint a few days to figure it out. Where Michael came back on the set with a keyboard that you could blow into, a mellotron, whatever it's called. I'm sorry, I don't
Okay.
recall the name, but he was able to compose while on set or in his trailer. Um, and if you look at the cut where Hull Barrett is coming back from town
Mhm.
after the fight, he doesn't hide the cast. The editor didn't catch it where his fingers are in a cast, and it's like, wow, that's
Wow.
a little modern looking. And there's a lot of things in that film. If you look at it, you can see it's amazing editing. Because example where my character's dad, who's found the giant rock of gold, spider, and goes to town and gets drunk, and the bad guys make him dance, and so on and
Right.
so forth. It took
Right.
us 3 days to shoot that one scene where
Oh wow.
Spider goes to town drinking while the boys are shopping in the mercantile for candy, and the bad guys come and make him dance and then shoot him from head to toe. If you look closely, example, the shots of brother and I on the porch of the mercantile, we're in a blizzard.
Mhm.
You
Okay.
look back at Spider, he's in sunlight, and then and there's snow on the ground. By the time we get to Dad's dead body, all the snow had melted, so they brought in the
Right.
oil-based fake snow, And when Richard Hamilton as Blankenship comes out to collect the boys, get them out of harm's way with the dead body, he's walking through the snow, and the snow picks up in the wind in chunks like this and goes across the screen. It's very funny because it's obviously fake snow, but the editor, kudos to the editor, he made the cut so quick that you don't really register all these inconsistencies. They're in a blizzard, he's in the sunlight, the snow's flying away. It's very funny.
Right.
Magic of Hollywood.
Wow. That's honestly a truly awesome story. And I love hearing about kind of like the behind the scenes stuff because forefront you just see the film and that's kind of it unless you like research a little bit about the trivia. But just your experience on Pale Rider alone, that's just purely just cool, and the fact that you got to meet Clint Eastwood and work alongside him, that's just something else. I've even got, so in the comment section on this stream, we've even got one here from my friend Rob who says that it's just awesome that you're still in contact with the cast and he loves seeing your story so far.
Yay! Well, I'm playing a little catch up here. I want to do the moving too slow here. The share screen to
No,
show
honestly,
the shot.
take your time.
Are you
There
able
you
to see
are.
that?
Yeah, got that
That's
sharing right now.
crying over Daddy's dead body because Clint had the main town, the new town that Richard Dysart's character is LaHood is in charge of, built on the top of a mountain in the national forest there outside of Ketchum, Sun Valley, Idaho. We were exposed to the elements constantly, and Bruce Surtees, the cinematographer, of course, wherever he set his camera, had the Sawtooth Mountains or the White Cloud Mountains or the Salmon River Mountains as a backdrop. So it was stunningly gorgeous. But for us, it was, with the wind chill factor, 10 below zero
Right.
most of the time. So I knew I had to cry over Daddy's dead body again. And we had just been snowed in for 3 days from a blizzard. But I think with the wind chill, my tears were literally freezing up in my eyes there.
Right. Yeah.
This is a shot
Wow.
from when Daddy finds the gold. Doug McGrath, who is still kicking up there in Canada somewhere. I sure would like to get him down for a reunion in Chuck
That would
LaFly.
be cool.
Yeah, a lot of that cast unfortunately has passed. From Chris and Carrie and both Richard Dysart and Richard Keel and Richard Hamilton and
Right.
John Russell. I mean, they've all left this plane. Fran Ryan, but there are a handful still around. I'm in touch with Sidney Penny and Herman Hoppe and a number of the cast, and I would love to get a Pale Rider reunion together. So if anyone, say, like, is in touch with the Sun Valley Film Festival, after the pandemic, let's do a reunion. So we shot the film there. I bet you Clint would come out for that.
Yeah, I mean that would be an awesome reunion, especially I'm sure there'd be some die-hard Pale Rider fans as well.
There are a lot out there. I'm
Yeah.
constantly surprised, because Unforgiven, which was just a few years later, was really a monster of a fantastic script and story, and got the Academy Award for Clint. Kind of overshadowed, I thought, Pale Rider. But then, no, when I look back, even though Silverado and Tom Berenger's Western, anyway, that even though there were other Westerns that were released in '85, Pale Rider turned out to be the highest grossing Western of the '80s.
Wow.
So a lot of people
That's
went to see
incredible.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know it's a big film. My dad's seen it, and he's a huge Clint Eastwood fan. So knowing that you're on the stream and that you starred in that movie, I think he's going to love it when he catches up on this.
Tell your dad I can sign a photo for him. Let's talk.
Awesome. I will do. That would be phenomenal. So Jeffrey, I've got a quick couple of questions here I want to ask you, and it's regarding kind of your film career, like after Pale Rider. Before we kind of touch on the Back to the Future stuff, which I'm sure a lot of people are waiting to kind of hear about. But I realized kind of after Pale Rider, a couple of years after that, did you actually do some voice work on the movie Heathers?
I did. Was
Right.
Heathers after Pale Rider? Okay.
It
Yeah,
was, yeah.
I during the early to mid 80s, worked a lot with a looping group. That's a group of artists, usually improv
Right.
trained, improvisational trained. And we'd go in and do the voices of people you see on screen that did not have
Mhm.
microphones on,
Right.
usually background or support players who were not the principals. And so what we would do is put words in their mouths,
Mhm.
and then they'd be turned down real low. So you would actually hear matching words to go with people's mouths that you'd see on screen. So I did that for
Okay.
Heather's, for Loverboy, for a TV series called The Best Times. Uh, I remember on one called Hot Resort, they couldn't get the principal actor in, so they had me do a punchline for a joke that his technically his sound had messed up on. So it was very
Okay.
interesting because I'd been working with this looping group called Custom Looping that Lee French from uh, Smothers Brothers Show in the Committee later day
Okay.
was the creative director on. And I walked in to do my ADR, my dialogue replacement on Pale Rider. And I walked in
Right.
and Lee was handling her loop group on Pale Rider. And she saw me and she said, "Oh, Jeffrey, I didn't call you in for this. What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm here to do my own looping. I'm co-starring in this." And she looked at me like, "Huh?" It was a really nice moment. And it was fun.
Pretty cool.
Billy McDaniels, I think that's his name from, gosh, so many great movies. Of course, his most famous probably being the attacker of Ned Beatty's character in Deliverance. Um, is a friend of Clint's, and Clint brought him in to do the looping for the cowboy sounds, the hooping and hollering and stuff, because he's
Mhm.
really very close to a real life cowboy. And he brought his bull terrier dog, that Spuds McKenzie dog,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
and the dog was running around the sound studio, the sound stage while we're taping, and Clint's like, "Billy, that dog's got to go pee." It was very funny. He called him Billy Dog too, and he'd whistle. Billy McDonald's, through his teeth, and said, "Billy Dog, simmer down." It was really fun to have a dog running around the stage while you're recording the
Oh,
studio.
yeah, can imagine. Yeah, and I was going to ask you, kind of, with the EDR and the voice work that you did with Heathers and Loverboy, because Loverboy starred Carrie Fisher. And I've got a friend called Anthony who's a huge Star Wars nut, so he's probably going to love that.
Oh,
Did you ever
nice.
get to meet Carrie Fisher?
Yeah, we did a WonderCon when I was still in San Francisco, and I remember at that show in particular, at one point Carrie kind of screamed and threw a tantrum and walked off, and I was like, "What happened?" Well, apparently, she'd been asking $35 for an autograph photo back,
Right,
so it was a few years back, and she had learned that Mark Hamill was getting 90 or something, and so she threw a
right.
fit when she found out Mark, who was really right next to her, getting that kind of money, and I think she came around and just upped her rate to Mark's rate. She was feisty. She was feisty. She was so beloved. There's so many
That's awesome.
great stories of people and their relations with her, and uh, admiration. It's just a shame that she's gone.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was a huge loss, and well, to Star Wars communities, but just the film community in general. But it's so cool that you got to meet her, and she was at the WonderCon as well. That's just really cool. And even my friend Anthony has read the head
That,
story, and he even said that's awesome.
that's one of,
Um,
is one of my favorite things about doing the fan cons is I get to meet my idols. I
right.
remember being in the green room at London Film and Comic Con, and Derek Jacobi was there, and it was
Oh,
just me and Derek Jacobi and one of the handlers, and I was like, um, hmm, I have to tell you this. And he was like, yes. I said, please don't take this wrong, but my wife had brain tumors and knew during her chemo she was going to lose her hair. So she gave herself a haircut that we called the Jacoby because it looked like what he wore in I Claudius.
right.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I said, "No, no, she's cancer free." But I just thought you might find it amusing that she had the same haircut that you did in I Claudius, which he did. And anyway, it broke the ice,
Yeah.
which was thrilling for me because I just adore his work as well as so many the classically trained or Royal Shakespeare or National Theatre, all the finely trained uh, actors from the UK, the classically trained. I just put on such a high pedestal, and here I was chatting with one of them. It was really a treat. I
Wow.
thrilled that I got John Hurt's autograph, and that I wouldn't have met Leonard Nimoy at that show in London if I hadn't been sitting at the table with James Tolkien on a break, because
Right.
James and Leonard had done a show together on stage that Otto Preminger had directed, and
Mhm.
so Nimoy came right over to our table, and for the next half hour or so, I'm listening to them tell stories and doing their Otto Preminger impressions. It was really surreal and wonderful.
Well, that's something else. And that's just so cool that you've got those experiences. Did you meet anyone else while you were at the London Comic Con?
Oh, sure. Uh, quite a few. I um, have a lot of wonderful stories that'll I could probably take up the rest of your show telling those stories.
Well,
Um,
everyone's loving your stories in the comments. Yeah, I mean, I remember about the London Comic Con. Obviously, it was the big Back to the Future, I believe, 30th anniversary. And the big one I wanted to meet was Michael J. Fox. He's my idol. I don't know if you can see this, but I've got him tattooed on my arm.
oh
And
wow!
then, and then, and then I got him to sign my program, and then I got like the autograph actually etched in on my arm as well. Um,
Nice.
so yeah, I was there to meet Michael J. Fox. That was the big one. But yeah, I remember that Comic Con and the panel, and it's just so cool that you got to be there. And I'm sorry that I missed you. I generally didn't even know you were there.
Yeah. Did you go to the panel?
I don't think I did. No,
Ah.
uh, that might be
Well,
why.
the panel was pretty amazing because we had, I don't know, it seemed like maybe thousands of people in the audience hanging on our every word, which was
Right.
really thrilling for me because I love the fans, and to be part of that family there was once again the payment for me for being in those films. I my part as George was minimalized because they didn't have Crispin, and they also,
Right.
because they used his likeness on my makeup, they wanted to keep me secret so he wouldn't sue. But of course, they couldn't get around that.
Yeah.
Little did I know, I didn't know they didn't have his permissions, which was very um, disconcerting, of course.
Yeah.
So
It's
here's
crazy.
another shot from backstage there at
Get
London
this.
Film and Comic Con that you were at,
There
and
we
we
go.
all signed this Gibson guitar that went up to charity auction for Michael's charity.
Oh, that's so cool.
Chris is back here being obscured a little bit by Francis, but everyone was in, of course, wonderful spirits. This is one of the reunions that happened at a DeLorean owners car show.
Okay.
And I remember this was in Ohio, and it was the first time that we all had seen a version of a Back to the Future musical. A high
Right.
school music teacher, drama coach, had written a musical version of Back to the Future, and they did 20 minutes of it for us. And that we had five five of the cast member, and of course Bob Gale and Andrew Probert there. Andrew
Mhm,
was on the
mhm.
design team of the DeLorean time machine. And this was in
Oh wow.
Pensacon, where I'm looking like David Crosby or uh, Albert Einstein. I don't know. I'm actually growing the mustache. I'm doing a Twain project, playing
Uh,
Mark Twain.
oh wow. Okay. Okay. I'll ask you about that at the end. That's interesting. Those photos are just awesome. And do you think we've seen that kind of 20-minute music project? That's where Bob Gale got the idea for the musical that's in London, or well, come to London.
I I couldn't say. You'll have to have him on the show and ask. But
Right.
I have photos. I'm sitting right behind him and Chris, and the light looks like it's going on over his head. Aha! This is it. Part four. He may have had the idea for the musical germinating before that, but the proof
Mhm.
was in the pudding. There really wasn't a dry eye in the house because these high school kids, did such a knockout performance. It was really lovely. And then uh, I'm not sure if it was one of the cast or just one of the guests uh, proposed to their fiance, or I'm not proposed, but proposed to their, I'm sorry, fiance, but proposed to their girlfriend in
Right.
front of us all. And then Harry got up and sang Earth Angel, and there wasn't a
Oh
dry eye
wow.
in the house after that. It was just magic. It really, to be
Oh,
part of these great magical moments is really lovely. Uh,
oh, definitely, definitely, yeah.
Yesterday, I guess, was the anniversary of the release of the soundtrack for which Harry got the gold record for his version of Earth Angel. And
Oh
when I do
wow.
shows with him, he often just picks up a mic and starts singing to young lovers that he sees. Harry's got a heart of gold, and it's just delightful. And I
That's
put him in
awesome.
my band. I For the anniversary year, my wife and I produced the Back to the Future cruise to help end Parkinson's to raise money for Michael's charity, because
Right.
after all these years, it's ultimately all about Michael. And
Yeah.
I thought, how can I give back? So we put this cruise together, and for the last night of the cruise, I put together a band called Mr. Fusion, and
Wow.
Mark McClure played. Dave McFly was on drums. Donald Full of Love, Goldie Wilson was on bass. I played guitar, and Harry was our lead singer. And the 50 Back to the Future fans that came on board and the Star Trek fans that shared the cruise with us just had the
Mhm.
time of their life. It was really great, and
Yeah.
we didn't do as well as I had hoped, but we still raised about 10 grand for Michael's charity.
Yeah. Well, that itself though is huge. It's still a donation and contribution towards the foundation. And at the beginning of the show, I forgot to mention this, but another lot of people that say a big hello is the Back to the Future Club Argentina.
Oh yeah,
Um, yeah, who I
Fernan.
believe you've been in their live stream before. And I work very closely with them. So every kind of Back to the Future video I do on my channel, I always wear one of their T-shirts, try promote their store because they're just awesome, and they
Nice.
also give back to the community and the Parkinson's fight as well. So those guys say a big hello. Also, I've got one of the comments here as well from my friend Justin, who says that would love to see you in Philly at some point. I don't know if
Tell
there's
your
any plans to
local
go there.
tell your local fan con to give me a shout. I'm pretty flexible. This is something I want to share. The Italian Back to the Future Club, both the Back to the Future Club and the DeLorean Owners Club was
Okay.
founded by this gentleman Nicola, and unfortunately he passed early. I don't think he made it out of his 30s from his cancer, and
Okay.
he wrote a book about his journey, and I got a copy of it and sent it around to all the principals that I could to sign for his family, and then they
Right.
sent me back a copy with as a big thank you. And so the Italian Back to the Future fans too, I wanted to give a shout out to them. And
Yeah, of
I
course.
would be remiss if I didn't mention uh, the artists. There are fans around the world that from time to time share or even send me uh, art.
Oh, that's cool.
Fan art is just uh, uh, really something
Yeah,
that I love. It's like, okay, I'm in a collage. Um,
that's awesome.
and then another Uber fan, Brad Fife, who's a great cosplayer, made an action figure of George, 2015.
I mean, definitely deserved. That's so cool. Yeah. So when I do
I'm
my
not produced yet.
oh, you got more?
There's only one.
Only one.
There's
Wow.
another artist, Needful Things, who's made one that's even in a package, and it has then Crispin's lawsuit printed on the packaging. It's very funny, very
Right.
creative artwork. He says that he's going to make me one. I'm waiting. It's about a year or two now.
I hope so. Yeah, that upside down figurine's awesome. I was going to ask you, so kind of just a couple of quick questions I want to ask about Back to the Future and your experience there as well.
Sure.
My friend Anthony is asked, do you have any embarrassing stories from your time on the set of Back to the Future, or anything that went on in the background?
Embarrassing. Well, if it's embarrassing, I probably don't want to tell it. Oh, no, I had some awkward moments, especially when I first arrived on set. First of all, to get into any of the makeups, George, age 17 and 77 in part two,
Mhm.
and then George, age 47 in part three. It took usually about 4 hours. to get into that makeup.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, and
So
you
if,
did it for
for
about 2
example,
weeks.
yeah, if I needed to be in makeup by, or rather needed to be on set by 9 a.m., I had to be in the makeup chair generally by 4:30 a.m. And
Jeez.
it was, I think we got it down finally to 3.5 hours, but then another hour to take it off at the end of the day. So it was a lot of
Right.
time in the wonderful makeup chair.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see
Can
this.
imagine. Yeah. Let me just add that here.
So this is
Oh yeah.
a Polaroid for continuity, makeup continuity that or hair that I grabbed because they were, I don't know, throwing it away or whatever. But this is, as you can see, the side profile that was obviously taken from Crispin's life mask.
Mhm.
And
Right.
full front, it didn't look so much like Crispin, but on the side, it sure did. And
Mhm.
this is that makeup, and you can see why it took 4 hours to apply. It was pretty transforming, and the wig,
Yeah.
$1,000 wig. So when I arrived on set in this makeup, I remember the first thing Michael said was, "Oh God, Crispin ain't gonna like this." And I was like, "Oh boy." And and several times in the first day or two of shooting, Zemeckis and others would refer to me as Crispin. So that was for me really uncomfortable and embarrassing.
Of course.
But eventually, I was like, "I'm not Crispin. Please, you guys, let's call me by
Yeah.
my real name." Or
Just a bit of respect.
yeah, it was awkward. But by the end of the week, I'm hanging out with Michael in his trailer and having a beer and talking stuff. And during the long nights shooting the exteriors of the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, fighting Biff again or kissing Lorraine on the dance floor, uh,
Mhm.
I'd have some time. I often would go hang out with Billy Zane because I made mixed cassette tapes of great music at the time, and I put
Right.
them on and hang out with Billy and tell stories. And I loved it that Billy knew the lyrics of every song that I had on my mixtape. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
and
so cool.
I have. How much time do we have?
Well, as much time as you've got, to be honest.
Oh, way.
Yeah, as long as you, yeah, keep going. If you've got a lot more stories to share, people's loving hearing them. So
Yeah,
I'm
I,
hearing
I just
from you.
I have a few things to show.
No,
My
of
cat,
course.
my cat is kind of crying. I'm wondering if I can get him to calm down here for a second. So bear with me, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Is he okay? Okay. All right. I've got support finally. Uh,
Awesome.
yay.
That Polaroid as well. That's so cool. Do you have any other photos from that time?
Oh yeah, I do. Hold
I've
on
never
just
seen that ever.
a sec. I'll bring up some. Let's see. Okay. Here are a couple. I'm sorry, I'm going slow on this, but
No, no, of course, take your time. I say that Polaroid. I've never seen that, and $1,000 wig. I didn't even know that. So it's crazy.
well, yeah, they really had the top makeup
Here we
and
go.
hair folk, really the crew, top notch in the industry. In the makeup trailer that we had Kenny Mayers and Marvin Westmore, the famous Westmore family, and Mike
Mhm.
Mills, Sonny Berman. Mike Mills was the foreman on Beetlejuice. Sonny Berman, of course, of the Berman brothers from the Star Trek series. Zoltan and his wife came in. They had won the Academy Award for Mask. A lot of really great
Of
makeup.
course.
Ken Chase was the designer. So you can see me in the McFly kitchen from 2015. Is
Yeah,
that sharing?
it is. Yeah.
Good, good. And most actors would get a stand-in for camera or lighting to focus and light, but I had a hang-in, and my hang-in
Right.
obviously was female. Um, I did a
Right.
I did
Okay.
a Zoom yesterday with an 11-year-old child in the UK who unfortunately is terminally ill.
Mhm.
And when I showed this picture, it was like, you had a female stand hang in. I was like, oh, yes, I did. I guess I did. Anyway, so we had very, very long days um,
Yeah.
and nights. Michael was shooting, of course, the last season of Family Ties during the day, and then we'd shoot with him all night.
Mhm.
and the weekends. And sometimes the weekends would go 26 hours long or more, or maybe 8 hours or less in between the next 21-hour long day or things like that. It was crazy. I was like, Michael, when
Right.
do you sleep? And he said, in the limousine in between the studios. And
Wow.
I really have a feeling that's, one of the reasons that his Parkinson's came on early, is that he just,
Mhm.
he was
Yeah.
overworked. um,
Yeah. It's like that for the first movie as well in his autobiography. He didn't sleep a lot as well, like through just traveling through sets, I've heard. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking.
Crazy. So
Um,
so so Jeffrey in the part two, so how long at a time? So you said this like 26-hour days sometimes you did. So
yeah.
how long of that day would you have to kind of be in that upside down position?
Oh, like I mentioned, 1 week shooting that, from the outside the front door through the house with all the effects and things we had to do there in the living room, and then through the dining room into the kitchen.
Mhm.
It was I probably worked about a little more than 7 or so days over the course of 2 weeks. But many of those days were, like I mentioned, on 1 week's time card, I had a 19-hour, a 21-hour, and a 26-hour long day. Uh,
Yeah.
and I was upside down pretty much for all that time. They
Jeez.
didn't like getting me down because it took a lot of time.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
production, the ILM folk built uh, on top of a ladder with an apple box boards, and would have me do a sit up and slide that under
Right.
me. I'd rest back on that. And sometimes
Right.
everyone would go for a break, for coffee or whatever, and I'd be on the set twiddling my thumbs on my back
Just
there.
waiting.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But I'm not complaining. Um,
Of course. Of course. I
the
mean,
only, I think the
that
only
role's
thing
so
that
iconic.
I think the only thing that I might have a complaint about is that I don't think I got any stunt pay, and I've been told by stunt coordinators that what I did was a stunt. So I don't know
Oh,
if I can go after that. So
oh,
I found
okay.
this. This was all cut from the making of. Uh,
Okay.
this is in the makeup trailer. You see Sonny Berman and Nancy Vasta working on me. In the chair next to me is Leah, who's being worked on by Ken Myers and Mike Mills. And
Oh,
usually
wow.
they'd work on us for a couple hours, and then we get to stretch and or go have breakfast.
Mhm. Of course. Yeah, and you said the makeup process was about 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
That's right.
Yeah. Wow. This is so cool. Is there a reason why this didn't make in the making
Yeah,
of?
the production didn't want any attention brought to me or the character for
Right.
fear, of course, of Crispin suing. I mean, it's like, huh? How
Right.
are you going to get around that? Um,
Right. Of course.
and it's really unfortunate because it kind of didn't do much for my career at the time. What has
Mhm.
happened over the years, of course, the fans kind of discovered me and have embraced me, which is nice. But in a way, also because I had no problem having been friends with Crispin, shared my stories and photos with him when he called me. Um, that with my help, he got his $750,000 settlement.
Right.
But he still complains. He still complains about my work and the production. I know, get over it, guys. Anyway, this is the young
Yeah.
George. Uh, Mike Mills touching me up for the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow. Honestly, that's so cool. That's honestly so awesome.
And believe how many people are jealous of that kiss.
Right. I can imagine quite a lot. that's just so cool. As I say, obviously I've never seen that before, and is the reason why it's maybe not on the Back to the Future like the brand new 4K they released? Is it because of the whole Crispin thing?
You'll have to ask them.
That's yeah, because something like that again, like us fans, we always want to see more back behind the scenes kind of stuff, and so it's incredible. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing
I
that.
I think they're probably adding more Eric Stoltz stills and
Mm,
bits and pieces like this. I have when I got the role, uh, surprisingly, they gave me on VHS the makeup
mm,
tests of Crispin and Leah and uh, Tom and Crispin, and it's really
mm,
cool because in one of the scenes with Tom and Crispin in a doorway, or I guess it was an exterior, checking the old age makeup, you see Tom improvise the line, "McFly, what is that? An Irish bug?" And it's very funny. It's very cool footage, and a lot of the improvising that Leah and Chris do
mhm.
is quite brilliant. It's really lovely. You see them building the character, developing the relationship,
Mhm.
picking at each other, and being kind of out there, far fetched with their improvisations. But it's a
Of
real
course,
treat, and those I believe have never gone out to any of the bonus materials. So eventually
of
they'll open
course.
the archives.
I really hope so, yeah, because I know on Netflix they recently released an episode of Back to the Future on a series called The Movie That Made Us, and on there they touched on a lot about Melora Hardin, who got replaced by Claudia Wells as Jennifer Parker in the first movie, and
Mhm.
sat in this whole debate about in the first movie with Eric Stoltz, like Marty when he punches Biff in the cafe, but at the time people thought, oh, it's Eric Stoltz's kind of punch, but it might be like a stunt double. So yeah, it's just it's so cool to hear about those behind the scenes stories and that footage as well.
The
Like again,
the fans love that. Oh, this is
yeah,
actually this is no, this is from that first week, 6 weeks of shooting with Eric, and this is from this, and picking it all apart, and here's a mistake, and it's like, wow, you
right,
guys are paying close attention.
yeah.
Pretty much. I recently learned the reason that George was upside down in
Was that
2015.
was that because
So,
of
well,
this intended for Crispin?
in the paperback and the script, it was written by the Bobs where George was out on the golf course and a flying car fell out of the sky and he wrenched his
Okay,
back, and so he's in the ortholev. But apparently on the first film, not only was Crispin kind of a pain making demands and things, he and uh, Leah in character
mhm,
as George and Lorraine had painted a painting, and he showed up one morning and asked Zemeckis to put the painting in their home,
right,
and Zemeckis didn't agree with that, and he had a fit apparently. And other when he had his hair trimmed by Ken
mhm,
Chase, he flipped out. Crispin, is an eccentric
right,
actor and an artist, and I
mhm,
respect that and all, but he also pushed a lot of people's buttons apparently. And
right,
then he couldn't always hit his marks. We have marks on the ground or wherever for our eyes and for our feet, so our
yeah,
bodies are in the light that has been set or a camera focus. And he would either under or overshoot his marks quite often.
right,
And to avoid that, the Bobs decided, well, we'll have him in this ortholev because the character's back has gone out. That way, he's on a rail that goes through the set, and we can stop him, and he'll always be on his marks. And so, and of
right,
course,
right,
a little bit of I was told it was meant to torture Crispin too while we were
right,
shooting. I was like, great, so I get to endure this. Anyway,
right, right.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Of course, but the thing is, Jeffrey, like, I've got to say, I don't think you get as much credit as you deserve simply because if you watch Back to the Future especially part two in that future 2015 home, that scene's just so iconic, and especially with the pizza and you hanging upside down, I,
Yeah,
I I just think it
if
should be out there more.
if you're dying to see more of me, a lot of it ended up on the cutting room floor. Like my banana, when George finally gets to eat, fruit, please, gets to
Yeah.
eat banana upside down. That got cut. That was pretty amusing.
Okay.
And a couple weeks ago, I got my script out of Paradox, and I was looking at that scene. We ran into production so quickly, my head was spinning. I didn't have a lot of time with my script. And looking at it recently, I realized there are like a half dozen or more different versions of that kitchen scene. And
Okay.
in fact, one of the versions, Marty is in the ortholev, hanging upside down.
Oh, wow.
They didn't know with the whole debacle with Crispin what the heck they were going to do, so they were trying to cover all these different possibilities. The creative process was underway with the writers, but there's in the bonus material on one of the DVD versions. I'm not sure if
Mhm.
it's the Blu-ray or the previous one. You look at the deleted scene of pizza, and you'll
Right.
see. Oh, you've seen it?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I know which one you're on about. But for people who don't know about this one,
Yeah. So if people haven't seen it, let me see if I can share.
of
Oh, here
course.
we go. I think I have it here. So I
Oh,
was
cool.
put into a body cast,
Mhm.
um, and the body cast, uh, the costume was put on over the body cast. Outside of the body cast and costume, there was a pipe that ran from it through the set, and on the other side of the set was a wheel, and
Mhm.
a crew member would spin the wheel on cue. When
Okay.
Lorraine took the hydrated 4-second pizza out of the oven, she would say, "George, rotate your axis for pizza." So in case you haven't seen it, I
Sure.
think I can share it here.
Yeah, of course. I've seen the scene, but there probably a lot of people that don't. So it'd be cool to add this
Well,
in.
I have some. I don't know. This might be the regular one. Oh, here we go.
So that's so interesting. So Jeffrey, in that scene, or like at least in that scene, so how did they do it? Where, of course, Michael J. Fox played the part of the sister, and then like the younger child as well. How did they do that all with you in that scene?
Uh, very slowly. Uh,
Right. Right.
we we worked with it was 88, and the computer technology wasn't there to do CGI.
Mhm.
There was a camera already working that other films had used, where I think Lily Tomlin, Bette Midler, and various other people who had played multiple characters used this camera. It was in the VistaVision Panaflex camera, and there
Mhm.
was a program, I believe, invented by a gentleman named Tondro, that actually allowed a splicing of the film inside the camera.
Right. Okay.
So what we did was we'd have to choreograph very carefully in rehearsal, block out, say, passing of the iced tea from, what was it, Marlene to Marty Jr. or vice versa.
Right.
And so we would set the blocking. We would shoot then, say, Marty Jr. passing it to Marty. Michael would go after getting that on that one strip.
Mhm.
Michael would spend 3 hours getting into his old age makeup, come back, we'd shoot Marty grabbing it and passing it to Marlene. He'd go and
Right.
change for 3 hours into Marlene's hot pants and wig, and then she would get it from him. And it would have to be very precise because the editing was going on inside the camera.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Of course. Yeah.
which is kind of unthinkable now. I mean, and it was a big challenge. I remember talking with Zemeckis about how complicated. I had asked him. I said, "Bob Z, are you going to do a sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit?"
Mhm.
And he said, "I don't think so," and I don't know. I was like, because it's so complicated, the shots using animation and actors, live actors, and all. He goes, "No, I got more complicated shots on this than I ever did on Who Framed Roger
See,
Rabbit. So, there was
gee.
that camera in particular. I remember we had an earthquake uh,
Mhm.
during the night between days when we were shooting that scene, and Bob Z thought we might have had to start over again because
Okay.
the shaking might have messed things up, but luckily it did not.
No, of course. Yeah, I mean that's just awesome, and it's just such a cool story, and I love hearing behind the scenes stuff. I could literally hear about this all day. Um, I'm a little bit conscious of the time. I've got like a little couple more questions. If
Yeah,
that's okay with yourself.
yeah, I'll
Um,
go on and on if you want me to.
Awesome. I might have to have you back for a part two. So another good question that I've got here is: part of my childhood and teenage years was Saved by the Bell. And
Yeah,
there is a particular episode, I believe in the rockumentary episode, where you're Screech's guru. Could you talk a little bit how that came to fruition?
yeah. I had been up on a lot of nerd roles over the years.
Right?
Revenge of the Nerds and My Science Project and
Yep.
uh, fun movies uh, like that. And I'd get called back, but was never cast in any of them, which was kind of upsetting because I worked hard on being a nerd.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then I guess that was early '90s. I got the call from my agent to go out on Say by the Bell, which
Mhm.
was I was like, okay, I need the work, and I brought in my own buck teeth, my own nerd glasses, and can you see that photo? Is it sharing?
Yeah, it's Sharon. Yeah.
Good, good. Um, so this very strange episode called Rockumentary, where it's a fantasy episode. I think Elizabeth had an accident skiing and had a broken leg, so they needed to write something quick
Mhm.
around her not being available, and so they
Yeah.
came up with this thing with the fantasy of the cast becoming a band and then the band breaking up and Casey
Of course.
Kasem, the other guest star, narrating it. And the thing with Casey, I had this bit where as Screech's guru, the high geek,
Mhm.
who he comes to for advice because the band broke up and everyone's hating each other and all. And I give him a magic retainer that will help him get his wish of marrying a cheerleader and moving to the beach.
Right.
I originally was wearing a fez and had the magic retainer appear out of the fez. And
Okay.
Casey Kasem, who's Muslim, took offense to this and went to the producer and said, "Listen, he can't do that joke. He can't do that. He's making fun of my religion," which I was not. I was just doing a gag because
Yeah.
I had copied from Stan Laurel having my hair standing straight up. And to
Mhm. Of
hide the hair for the reveal, I needed a hat, so I used the fez as it. Anyway,
course.
the gag then moved to having the magic retainer coming out of a spittoon, which I thought was disgusting. But nonetheless, we used it, and that's the story.
Sure. That's
And it's such a
awesome.
shame. It's heartbreaking that Dustin had his cancer come on and take him last year so quickly.
Yeah.
It
Of
was
course.
heartbreaking. I did another film that Dustin is in called Our Feature Presentation, in which he did a great job, and it's just very very sad that we don't have him anymore.
Yeah. No. Of course. And do you still talk to any of the cast from Saved by the Bell?
No, they never call.
No. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, it's
So
still pretty.
I am available to come back as the high geek if they're on their
Yeah.
new version, on their rehash new version. They need me. I need work. I just put
Yeah.
it out there.
Yeah. Definitely. I think you should.
I have
uh,
a nice part in a film that just picked up distribution called The Eden Theory. Uh, the the
I've heard about that.
director, Mr. Missick, he's been contacting me since really he was in his teens, in his late teens. He wanted to be a filmmaker, and I would mentor a little bit, give him advice, and then he did a couple shorts, and then he did a feature, and he brought me out to be in his feature, and I'm
Mhm.
really delighted that he got distribution for it. And another film
Yeah.
that I play the embodiment of uh, really a compassionate death.
Mhm.
in this amazing short called The Carnival of Wonders has won now over 20 awards at film festivals. So I'm looking for that to get
Wow.
out there for people to see. It's quite extraordinary. Madonna's choreographer, Christopher Childers, choreographed some amazing dances in it, and my character kind of strings the whole thing together. We just did 3 screenings for the public where we made it down in Half Moon Bay in California, and the audiences roared. They loved it. So can't wait for that to
That's
get out
awesome.
there. And then
Yeah.
with my Mark Twain mustache, I'm developing Mark Twain's American history. So I'm looking for executive
Okay.
producers and some team to help me flesh out some of the episodes and pilot.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, because I was going to ask you about your future work. So I was on IMDb earlier and I saw a lot of your credits. And I seen that there was one called The Standard. Is that true?
Yeah, my friend over in Arizona, Dana Skavarik, has backers that he's still in pre-production on that script, um, which is a whole take on new standard of currency.
Okay.
Very compelling story. There's another one that called Treasure Tales, which I adore. That I'm tapped for the lead in that one, which is a great kind of who done it, where I'd be a teacher to
Wow.
these school kids that I take send them off on a treasure hunt, and in
Okay.
which they find a huge amount of money from a bank heist. Um,
Okay.
really great script.
Well, you do teaching in your spare time, so I've heard. So that will kind of come as like more of a natural role, right?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to find a way to make Zoom work for my acting students, where we'll do
Yeah.
monologues or scene work
Mhm.
and record it on Zoom, and then I'll stop the Zoom and
Right.
download it and say meet back here in 5 minutes, and then we'll be able to watch the work sharing screen, and I can
Right.
give them side coaching, or we can watch it together, and I can talk to them about their work, and then yet I'll still do side coaching in class before the playback. Um,
Mhm. Of
yeah, it's
course, that's awesome.
really difficult not being in person and getting in on the intimacy that's required for great acting coaching. But then again, the camera can't lie, and
Yeah.
Zoom, StreamYard, others are pretty much that. I can
Mhm.
really get in there and see what's going on still.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, and it's cool that you're still being able to teach people, even if it's via a different method for now.
Yeah, if there are actors watching who want some brush up coaching, email me through jeffreyweissman.com.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention, Jeffrey, that I've got all the links to anything you need to know about you in the description box down below for the stream. So all your
Oh, great.
socials, your official website. So yeah, if anyone's watching this and they would like some acting, as Jeffrey's mentioned, or if you'd like to hit him up on social media, definitely click the links down below. Jeffrey, I just want to thank you so much for doing this.
Sure,
It's
sure.
been an
And
absolute
and
blast.
and don't forget, I have uh, Pizza Hut wrappers and rare photos that I can sign and send action figures. Not the old George, but the young George one. And
Yeah.
also Comic Cons. There's the Fanboy Expo in
y-
Orlando in
y-
just a few weeks here, and then Fanboy Expo in Knoxville, Tennessee, and then New Jersey Horror Con in November. So come see me
That's
with a
awesome.
mask on, and we'll drop the mask for a photo. How's that?
And I will leave the links to all those cons as well down below in the description box if anyone wants to buy their tickets. Come out, meet Jeffrey, go support him. Definitely deserves more love than he gets. Definitely for everything he's done for Back to the Future and in general. And
Thank you, Mike.
oh,
I'll
that's
see you in the
massive.
future.
Well, guys, thank you. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, whether it's live or after the fact. Jeffrey, again, thank you so much for doing this. Honestly, baffled that you even took the time to do this. So thank you so much. And guys, until the next time that you see me and Jeffrey, this has been the Z Review, and we're signing out.
Be well.